Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is part 2 in the series that I'm doing on my investment property journey. So if you've ever thought about purchasing an investment property, hopefully as I just kind of chronicle my adventure and my journey here, it can help you learn from my successes, help you learn from the mistakes that I've made. And on this video, we're going to be talking about how I identified the property that I chose to get. So this is probably one of my favorite parts of the journey, so I'm excited to bring you all along. In the first video, I talked about how I used a home equity line of credit called a HELOC as a down payment to purchase an investment property. So what I was doing was using all this equity. So if you have a bunch of equity or equity in your home at all, you could potentially take out a line of credit, go back and watch that video, and I'll teach you how to take out a line of credit so that then you can use it as a down payment so you don't have to spend hardly any money out of your pocket. So this video, we're going to talk about how I identified. So after you get that home equity line of credit, don't forget, you definitely have to go to your mortgage agent kind of as a next step and say, lender, and find out how much money you can get. And don't forget to tell them that you are planning on using a home equity line of credit, if you are, as a down payment, because that will certainly affect how much money they can lend you. So this video is saying we've made those 2 steps. We have a number from our lender. They say we're pre-approved for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, whatever it is. But we go, okay, where do we want to get this investment property? And so what I did, I'm going to pull up a map. I live in Tennessee. And I'm actually a realtor in Tennessee, so I thought, you know what? I think it'd be a good idea to get an investment property here in Tennessee because I make money off of it, right? So I'll get a discount because I'm a realtor, so hey, you might as well do that. So I say right off the bat, like everyone's situation is unique and everybody's situation is different. So I chose, I'm going to go and I'm going to stick in Tennessee since I'm licensed in Tennessee. And there were 3 places that I kind of looked at originally. The first one you can kind of see up here, I put a little purple map symbol drop, whatever. I did purple so it would stand out in the Middle Tennessee area. And I thought about that. I did a little research, but to be frank, it didn't really excite me because I've lived in this area most of my life. Now, it would be easier when it comes to if there's maintenance or problems or issues with the home. That would be nice. But I was wanting, something that my family and I could actually go to. Now, it's an investment. It's about making me money, but I wouldn't mind going once or twice a year and at least for a couple days and enjoying this investment property myself. So you got to know why you're getting it, if it's just purely an investment or if you would like to enjoy it yourself with friends or family or whatever. That's really important as you're kind of making this decision. So the next thing I did was I began to look at the Chattanooga area, and I love this area. Number one, it's probably my favorite area in Tennessee. And also it's only about an hour and a half from my house. So this would be an area that I could frequent, like if my Airbnb wasn't booked up. And I can't remember if I said this in this video or not, but I'm looking at mine for a short-term rental. If my short-term rental was not booked up, hey, I could kind of last minute head down there for the weekend or whatever and actually enjoy the property. But big lesson here, make sure that you know that every single area, every single city, every single town, all these places don't allow short-term rentals. There are different rules and different regulations for different municipalities and cities and whatnot. And what I found out early on in my journey as I started looking at a few homes in Chattanooga and I started Googling how to get a short-term rental license or what the laws were, I found out that they recently passed a law that said they are putting the brakes on adding any new short-term rentals within the city limits because they're just trying to figure out what the best route to go moving forward, the best movement forward, the best path forward in what to do here for their city. So if I had went out and bought a place in Chattanooga and I wanted to use it for a short-term rental, I would have been completely out of luck until they get their laws figured out. And then who knows at that point in time. And another thing is even within the same city or the same town, like they can have different zones within that short-term rentals are allowed and that they're not. So you need to make sure that before as you're looking around and before you offer on a home, that your property can absolutely, if this is what you want to use it for, be absolutely used for a short-term rental. So I ended up narrowing my search in this Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville type area that I have up here. And it's the Smoky Mountains. And what really drew me to that area is it's about 3.5 hours from my home. So it's not super far away. So I could do it kind of last minute, but maybe not like just off a complete whim. But as I began to do Google searches and like looking for the best areas in Tennessee, best areas in the country to do short-term rentals, I saw this area repeatedly on the national scale, people saying this is one of the best places to get short-term rentals in the whole country, and that's because occupancy rates are so high. And so there's definitely different data points that you want to look at. You definitely want to look at what you can rent it out for, but you also want to look at how often it's going to be rented out. Because I looked at several lake homes in Tennessee, and while I think that would be cool personally, they were getting about 50% occupancy rates. So about 50% of the time people were renting in that, which isn't bad, but basically when it gets winter in Tennessee, people stop going to the lake. Up here in this area, the rates are much, much higher because people go in the fall for fall break. They go for Christmas. This area is huge for Christmas time, even the spring break, summer. It's rented out a huge percentage of the time. And so anyway, so I decided I'm going to look in this particular area for that reason. Okay, when I decided to do that, started doing the Google searches, I also started asking people that I knew that had rental properties in that area. So ask. If you start to identify an area, a town, a city, find out if you know anyone that's done short-term rentals there or someone who knows short-term that is doing short-term rentals in the area, and don't be afraid to ask. I know this is kind of old school, like working the networking, and just ask like how it's going, because I found out that the people that I was asking, they're seeing 80 to 90% occupancy rates, which are huge. I mean, that means 80 to 90% of the time these places are staying booked up because of the area, and that got me excited. But what also meant was these prices are expensive to be able to buy places because investors are snatching these up left and right. So the first thing I did was I went to like Realtor.com, you can go to Zillow or whatever, and begin to look at, type in these cities and look at the different areas. Because you may not know like the local MLS, the listing service for the area. So just use Realtor.com or whatever as you're beginning to do the search. So as I'm looking for these, obviously using filters and recognizing quickly about how much house I can afford. I recognize personally, I was pre-approved for about $700,000. And so I recognize very quickly if I want a cabin in this area, it's gonna be 3 bedrooms max for that price, and oftentimes 2 bedrooms. So I'm looking through here, I'm finding out, looking at these different properties, and as I'm going, okay, this looks nice, so maybe I'll look at this one here that's 2209 Flying Squirrel Way. And I'm looking at it going, that looks like a pretty nice place, 589, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, 1,300 square feet. One of the first data points that I get is I go on AirDNA. Now there's multiple websites that do this. AirDNA is probably the most popular site. And what it does is it goes out and it links to Airbnb and gives you a projection of how much this place can rent for or could potentially rent for. And so I'm going to show you the free version of AirDNA, though you can definitely spend money to use it. So if you just airdna.co, so that's airdna.co, will pull up this website. Now you can type in like Sevierville and look at some little bit of information like high level overview, but in order to unlock all the goods, I'll pull this up. AirDNA is not paying me anything to do this, by the way. I just want you to have the information. If you want to unlock all the goods in the area, it depends on how many active listings there are. Oftentimes I've found it's very easy to have 1,000 active listings, meaning $99 a month, and that's per market, which can get kind of expensive if you're looking at Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and Townsend and like all these different areas around. You could be talking about several $100s a month just to be able to get like super in-depth information. They do have unlimited access down here if you bill annually for $5.99 a year or whatever. And that might sound expensive, and it is, but if you're making an important decision on an expensive investment property, it might be worth spending the money for that. However, there is some information that they will give you entirely for free. And this is primarily what I used as one of my data points. And that is, and I missed this for a while until someone showed me this, that is when you go into AirDNA and you go into their the Market Minder or whatever they have, there's this little unlocked thing called Rentalizer. See, all these different things are locked up. Here I can click on Rentalizer, and then what I can do is I can go back to this home. I'm just going to copy this address here. And then I'm going to go back to AirDNA. I'm going to click search, and it's going to give me just a very high level overview and high level estimation for how much money this cabin could bring potentially. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify the information here is correct. So this says that this address has 1 bedroom, 2 baths. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to see that it actually has 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And sometimes it's a little funky, honestly, here. And so you can kind of play with the numbers a little bit, like it could go down even though you add a bedroom or add a couple guests. So it's just pulling the data from AirDNA of what the average places are doing around there. So anyway, in this situation, it goes up from 47 to 55,000, and you can see the annual revenue, the average daily rate for 2 bedrooms, 2 baths in that area. Also pay attention that this only says 2 guests at the moment. And the occupancy rate is 75%, which is a decent occupancy rate. Now, if you look at this cabin, I'm sure that you can fit more than 2 guests into this cabin. Let's just scroll through some of these real quick. And we can see that, come on. Okay, so there's a bedroom right there. So with that's like a king size bed. So there's a couple people that you can have stay in that room. And then is this the same room or not? Sometimes these look really similar. They're not, the different beddings. So here's another bedroom with this. So there's a minimal 4 people that you could get in there. And then what you can see what they've done here is they've taken a loft area, which often happens in cabins, and added bunk beds. So these people can actually fit 6 people. Now think about it. Another way is you could potentially also, I should have just made it bigger like this, take your living room and add like a sleeper sofa for 8 people. Now the thing is as you're doing, short-term rentals, you got to start thinking through, is it really worth cramped? Like, is this house really big enough for 8 people, or are they going to feel super cramped or whatnot? But let's go back to AirDNA and let's just boost this up. Let's just say 6 guests, and let's do an update. It was 55,000. Let's see if anything changes here. And again, sometimes you'll be surprised that it may not change as much as you think. See, right here, it's done this. So whether it's 6 guests or 2 guests, they're saying it's going to roughly be about the same. I don't think that's accurate. And so I'll make the point that this is 1 point of data, right? So this is 1 point of data, and we're seeing here that it could make about $55,000 per year. Now, I would not recommend just using this. I, again, would use it as 1 data point. So after I focus in and I look at an area, so I'm actually going to type in the cabin that I am under contract with right now. So we can go down and literally look at what's going on with my exact property. Oh, my internet's not the greatest here. Isn't that great? Shoot a YouTube video and your internet's being a little bit slow. There we go. And so why it's finding this property, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to show you here in just a second that I'm not only going to be looking at this particular AirDNA, I'm also going to go to Airbnb and VBRO and look at data points there as well. So for this property, it says $60,000 a year. I'm actually going to say it does actually have 3 bedrooms, and I can fit 8 guests. I could probably go 10 in this one, but let's just kind of look at what 8 guests would be like. And now $72,000. So I'm going to do the next video on figuring out if it's worth it, really diving into the numbers. I'm not going to go deep into that right now for these properties. For this property, this is kind of a higher level overview of kind of narrowing down, but I get to see how much annual revenue is again, average daily rate, and occupancy rate. Then what I'll do is we'll go to Airbnb itself, and I just went in and I looked at, I'm flexible. You can type in, I typed in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I'm flexible on my rates. Find me a weekend. And I went in October, which was, it's a couple months out from right now. I'm filming this in August, just to kind of go a little further out to make sure that I'm not missing places as much. And I literally found the road for the cabin that I have on here. And so what I'm wanting to do now is find similar properties and see what they're renting out for, and also look to see if those occupancy rates, how accurate that is. So I'm looking at some kind of in this area. Let's look at this first one right here, $384 a night. So I think I've got it pulled up here. Now, the first thing I'll notice is that this is 4 bedrooms and 3 baths, which is bigger than the one that I'm looking at. Same amount of guests, but it's bigger, and you can see that this one has beautiful views. Now, the one that I'm looking at or I'm in contract with has really nice views, but if I'm being honest, these are a little bit better. It also has an extra bedroom. And so it looks like a pretty nice place, really comparable kind of in style. Now, mine is a little bit more cabiny. This has some sheetrock, some drywall up there, and mine's got like wood all through it. And mine also has a bigger a hot tub. And so there's some positives to the one that I have. And the windows are a little nicer. But hey, this is 4 bedrooms, and so this is going to be able to probably get more folks. I'm going to say that mine probably wouldn't bring quite that much, but I'm also going to go down here and I'm going to just click on the check-in date, and I'm going to look back and I'm going to say, all right, this is already booked for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nights in October. Now, some of those could be owner nights where they're using it for themselves. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this is almost booked up half in September, and it's just August right now. In August, it definitely has some spaces available here, but I have found out based on my research that often people will book these kind of last minute sometimes. So it looks like it's getting decent occupancy based on that. I went back and I looked to find another one. Let's see here. Click on this one. Yeah, $269 a night. All right, I pulled this one up and I see this is only 1 bedroom, 2 beds, only 4 guests, and yeah, so the place that I'm getting is definitely, I'm not going to go through the pictures here, definitely a little bit nicer. I can have a lot more guests. They're asking $269 a night. Now, another thing to just double check and look at is how many reviews they have and what the reviews are, because that obviously can super affect the rating on this, or super affect this data point. If they have terrible reviews, that's not going to make a lot of sense to use that. I'm going to click on check-in, and I see here that they're got some in October booked up. They're almost entirely booked up here in September, which is really nice. And then in August, they're fairly booked up. And that's at $269. That's really close to my place. And the place that I'll be looking at is, I mean, just to be real, it should bring more money based on having more guests that can sleep there, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking at this going, okay, so I think I could probably get, at least this much money potentially per night during this season. And so as I'm looking through that, I'm multiplying, occupancy rates versus how much I think I can get in a night. I'm going to go more detailed into that, but I'm going to stop the video here, kind of in this part, and hopefully this was able to help you kind of go beyond, all right, I know about how much I can spend, so what are some data points that I can hit to start narrowing my search to finding that perfect investment property place? If you're enjoying my channel, I'd love for you to subscribe to it so that way you can just find out when all these new videos are coming out. You can also go back prior and watch. I've got the link in the description, and you can click on the I to watch the first video that I did in this series. I will see you soon.